New question. The member from Toronto Danforth.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, my question for the Premier. When the Liberal government cancelled gas plant contracts for purely political reasons, it cost taxpayers over $1 billion. Does the Premier know how much it will cost the people of Ontario to cancel the $5.5 billion signed contract with Winstream?
Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When it relates to Winstream, Mr. Speaker, we are well aware that the Tribunal has provided us with 20 days to work with our federal counterparts, the federal government, to do our due diligence and take a look at all aspects of this, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that we get this right. But when it comes to our investments in this province and our investments in the electricity system, Mr. Speaker, we've actually brought forward 18,000 megawatts of renewable energy, Mr. Speaker, and that's something we should all be proud of. When you look at coal, the next best thing in reducing our GHGs, Mr. Speaker, is the 18,000 megawatts that we've brought online of our renewable energy. And when it comes to natural gas firing, Mr. Speaker, I think that's important for us to talk about the Quebec deal. That's something we should all be very proud of, because the 2 terawatts of power that we are bringing in from Quebec, Mr. Speaker, will be directly targeted towards the natural gas peaking plants, Mr. Speaker, which will reduce our GHGs even further.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Well, Speaker, it's clear they don't like this question. Signing the Winstream contract has already cost taxpayers $25 million plus $3 million in legal fees, because an NAFTA tribunal says the contract is still in force and the province has put it on hold. If the government was committed to producing public power instead of signing lucrative contracts with private energy companies, Ontario's energy system would be free to serve the public interest instead of being tied up in courtrooms and NAFTA tribunals. When Liberals and Conservatives sign private energy contracts, it means putting the interests of big corporations ahead of the needs of the people of Ontario. How much more are Ontarians going to have to pay because the Liberals signed a $5.5 billion contract with Winstream? How much more?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And of course, I'm happy once again to answer this question. Mr. Speaker, as I've said before, we have 20 days, Mr. Speaker, to review this case. The question that the member brought forward is purely speculative, Mr. Speaker, and there's full of speculation. But what I can talk about, Mr. Speaker, are facts. Facts that we've invested in renewable energy, Mr. Speaker. Facts that we've invested in nuclear energy, Mr. Speaker, creating hundreds of thousands of jobs and providing baseload contracts, baseload power for the province, Mr. Speaker. We're very proud of the system that we have in place. It's clean, it's green, it's reliable, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we don't know where they're coming from. They're not in favour of renewable. They're not in favour of nuclear. They're not in favour of so many things, Mr. Speaker. They have no plan. Both opposition parties, Mr. Speaker, have no plan when it comes to energy. On this side of the House, we have a plan and we're acting on it.
Thank you. Final supplementary.
Well, if this is your plan, it's a very scary thought. When our government invests in the energy sector, it should be for the benefit of everyone in Ontario. Signing contracts with for-profit private energy companies leaves Ontarians on the hook for billions of dollars if those contracts are cancelled. We saw it with the gas plants. We're seeing it with a sell-off of Hydro One, which will benefit shareholders over regular Ontarians too. My question to the Premier is this: what will it cost this time to get out of a contract that the government is cancelling to serve its own political interests just before an election?
Okay. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're very, very proud of the electricity system that we have in the province, Mr. Speaker. We have an adequate supply of power. The IESO have told us that very clearly, Mr. Speaker, and so when looking at the power that we have in our province, Mr. Speaker, there was no need for us to continue to move forward with the LRP2 decision, Mr. Speaker, so we were able to suspend that and actually save $3.8 billion to the ratepayers, Mr. Speaker, because we know that's important. We understand that some families are having difficulty when it comes to their hydro bills, so finding ways to help them, Mr. Speaker, is important for this government. When we've done just that, we made sure that we brought forward our bill, Mr. Speaker, that's reducing and permanently reducing bills by 8% come January 1st. 330,000 families that live in rural, remote, or some northern parts of the province, Mr. Speaker, will see that reduction go up to 20%. The ICI program, as I talked about earlier, Mr. Speaker, is helping businesses right across the province,
Thank you.
and we're looking forward to helping them all, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.